Aaron squinted through the windshield, the wipers working furiously to keep up with the torrential rain. The GPS on his phone indicated he was on the right road, but it had been ages since he had seen another car or any signs of life. The rural roads had a way of making a person feel isolated, and the storm only heightened that sensation. He had left the city earlier that evening, heading to a remote cabin for some much-needed solitude. The idea of disconnecting from the world for a weekend seemed perfect until the weather turned sour. Now, as the storm raged outside, Aaron regretted not checking the forecast. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden thud. The car lurched to the side, and Aaron fought to keep control. He managed to pull over, the vehicle shuddering to a halt. Heart pounding, he stepped out, the rain immediately soaking through his jacket. He circled the car and found the source of the problem, a flat tire. Aaron cursed under his breath. He opened the trunk, searching for the spare and the jack. As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The rain poured down, the forest around him dark and foreboding. He glanced around but saw nothing out of the ordinary. The tire change took longer than expected, and by the time he finished, he was drenched and exhausted. He climbed back into the car, cranking up the heat to stave off the chill. The road stretched out before him, a dark ribbon cutting through the dense forest. He hoped he was close to the cabin. Aaron drove slowly, the rain making visibility nearly impossible. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the faint glow of lights up ahead. As he got closer, he realized it wasn't the cabin, but an old dilapidated gas station. Deciding it was better to ask for directions than to get further lost, he pulled in. The station looked abandoned, but a single light flickered inside. Aaron stepped out of the car and ran to the door, pushing it open with some effort. The interior was dimly lit, and a musty smell filled the air. He approached the counter, tapping the bell to get someone's attention. An elderly man emerged from the back, his eyes narrowing as he took in Aaron's appearance. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice gravelly. "I'm looking for a cabin," Aaron said, showing the man the address on his phone. "I think I'm lost." The old man studied the screen, then looked up at Aaron. "You're not too far off. Take the next left after you leave here. Follow the road for a couple of miles, and you'll see a dirt path on your right. That should lead you to your cabin." Aaron thanked him and turned to leave, but the man's voice stopped him. "Be careful out there. This weather has a way of playing tricks on people." Aaron nodded, not sure what to make of the warning. He got back into his car and followed the man's directions. Sure enough, he soon saw the dirt path and turned onto it. The trees closed in around him, and he felt a sense of unease settle over him. After what felt like an eternity, the path opened up, and he saw the cabin ahead. It looked welcoming, a beacon of warmth and safety in the storm. Aaron parked and grabbed his bag, hurrying inside. The interior was cozy, a fire crackling in the hearth. He set his bag down and collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. As he began to relax, he noticed a piece of paper on the coffee table. It was a note, written in neat handwriting. "Welcome, Aaron. I hope you enjoy your stay. Be mindful of the storm. It has a way of revealing things best left hidden." Aaron frowned, wondering who had written the note. He hadn't told anyone about his trip. The fire flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He shook off the unease and decided to explore the cabin. He found the kitchen stocked with basic supplies, the bedroom furnished with a comfortable-looking bed, and a small bathroom. Everything seemed normal, but that note kept nagging at him. Who knew he was here? And what did they mean by revealing things best left hidden? Aaron tried to distract himself, but the questions lingered. As the night wore on, the storm showed no signs of letting up. The wind howled outside, and the rain pounded against the windows. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Then, just as he was about to drift off to sleep, he heard it, a faint tapping sound. It was coming from outside, near the front door. Aaron sat up, heart racing. He listened, hoping it was just a branch or some animal seeking shelter. But the tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate. Summoning his courage, Aaron got out of bed and crept to the front door. He peered through the peephole but saw nothing. The tapping persisted, growing louder. With a deep breath, Aaron opened the door, the rain immediately drenching him once again. He looked around but saw no one. The tapping stopped, confused and more than a little scared. He closed the door and locked it, hoping to put the unsettling experience behind him. He returned to bed, but sleep eluded him. The storm outside seemed to intensify, and the cabin, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that he was not alone, that someone, or something, was watching him. The night stretched on, the storm's fury unrelenting. Aaron lay there, wide awake, wondering what the rest of the night would bring. Aaron's eyes felt heavy, but he remained alert, every creak and groan of the cabin amplified by his anxiety. Just as he thought he might finally drift off, a loud crash echoed from the living room. He bolted upright, heart pounding in his chest. Grabbing the flashlight from his bag, Aaron cautiously made his way towards the sound. The living room was dimly lit by the dying fire, the shadows dancing menacingly. The source of the noise became apparent. A window had blown open, letting the rain pour in. He hurried to close it, his hands trembling. As he secured the latch, Aaron noticed something strange on the floor, a set of muddy footprints leading from the window to the front door. His blood ran cold. Someone had been inside. He followed the footprints, his mind racing with fear and confusion. They stopped abruptly at the front door, which was still locked from the inside. How had they gotten in? And where had they gone? Aaron's thoughts were interrupted by a soft, rustling sound. He spun around, shining the flashlight towards the source. In the corner of the room, he saw the edge of a piece of paper sticking out from under the couch. He picked it up, recognizing the same neat handwriting from the earlier note. "You shouldn't have come here, Aaron. Leave now, before it's too late." His heart pounded as he read the words. Who was leaving these notes? And why were they warning him? The storm outside raged on, but Aaron knew he couldn't stay in the cabin any longer. He quickly packed his things, his hands shaking with urgency. Just as he was about to head for the door, the power went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. Aaron's flashlight was the only source of light now, casting eerie shadows on the walls. He made his way to the front door, but as he reached for the handle, he heard it again, the tapping. This time, it was louder, more insistent. It sounded like it was coming from inside the cabin. Aaron's pulse quickened. He turned around, shining the flashlight into the darkness. The tapping continued, now accompanied by a faint whispering. It seemed to be coming from the bedroom. Swallowing his fear, Aaron moved towards the bedroom, the whispers growing louder with each step. He pushed the door open and shone the light inside. The room was empty, but the whispers persisted, filling the air with their eerie cadence. He followed the sound to the closet, his hand trembling as he reached for the handle. He flung the closet door open, the flashlight beam revealing nothing but empty space. The whispers stopped abruptly, replaced by an oppressive silence. Aaron backed away, his mind racing. He needed to get out now. He turned to leave, but a figure stood in the doorway, blocking his path. Aaron froze, his breath catching in his throat. The figure was cloaked in shadows, its features indistinguishable. It took a step forward, and Aaron stumbled back, his flashlight flickering. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice trembling. The figure remained silent, another step closer. Aaron's back hit the wall, nowhere left to retreat. The flashlight flickered again, then died, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through him as the figure loomed closer. In a desperate move, Aaron pushed past the figure, sprinting out of the bedroom and towards the front door. He fumbled with the lock, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Finally, the door swung open, and he burst outside into the pouring rain. He ran to his car, not daring to look back. The engine roared to life, and he sped down the dirt path, the cabin disappearing in his rearview mirror. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind reeling from the night's events. As he drove, the rain began to let up, the storm finally showing signs of subsiding. But Aaron's fear lingered, the memory of the figure and the whispers haunting him. He didn't stop until he reached the gas station, its lights a welcome sight in the early dawn. Norman stared at the rain-splattered windshield, the rhythmic thumping of the wipers doing little to clear the torrent obscuring his view. The highway was desolate, a lonely stretch of road cutting through dense woods. He was on his way to a remote cabin, a much-needed escape from the relentless pressures of work and life. The forecast had warned of heavy rain, but he hadn't anticipated it to be this bad. As he drove deeper into the forest, the GPS on his phone lost signal. He glanced at the map one last time, trying to memorize the remaining turns. His headlights barely pierced the darkness, the beams swallowed by the rain and the towering trees lining the road. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, briefly revealing a figure standing by the roadside. Norman's heart skipped a beat. He slowed down, peering through the sheets of rain, but the figure was gone. Had he imagined it? He shook his head, attributing it to fatigue and the eerie atmosphere. Continuing on, he felt a gnawing unease creeping in. The road twisted and turned, narrower now, the trees pressing in closer. Suddenly, the car jolted as if it had hit something. Norman slammed on the brakes, heart pounding. He stepped out into the rain, cursing under his breath, and inspected the front of his car. Nothing. No sign of any impact. He walked a few steps back, scanning the ground with his flashlight. There, partially hidden in the underbrush, was a shoe. A child's shoe. His stomach churned. Who would be out here in this weather, and why? He picked it up, the small size and bright color only deepening his sense of dread. Returning to the car, he tossed the shoe on the passenger seat and continued driving. His mind raced with possibilities, none of them comforting. The rain showed no signs of letting up, and the road seemed endless. After what felt like hours, he saw a faint light up ahead. Relief washed over him as he approached a small, dilapidated gas station. The place looked abandoned, but the light was on inside. Norman parked and rushed to the door, desperate for any form of human contact. Inside, the dim light revealed dusty shelves and an old man behind the counter. The man's eyes followed Norman as he entered, a silent, unsettling scrutiny. "Need some help?" the old man asked, his voice gravelly. "Yeah, I'm trying to find this cabin. Got a bit lost," Norman replied, showing him the address. The old man squinted at the paper, then looked back at Norman with a strange expression. "You shouldn't be out there tonight," he said slowly, "especially not in this weather." Norman forced a laugh. "Just need to get to the cabin. I'll be fine." The old man shook his head. "Strange things happen in these woods. Best be careful." Norman thanked him and left, the warning echoing in his mind. He drove on, the rain relentless, the darkness suffocating. Another flash of lightning, and this time, he clearly saw the figure in the road. He swerved, tires skidding on the wet pavement, and came to a stop inches from the trees. Heart racing, he looked back. The figure was still there, motionless, watching him. He couldn't make out any details in the darkness and rain, but the silhouette was unmistakably human. Fear clawed at him as he debated what to do next. Norman took a deep breath, steeling himself. He couldn't leave without investigating. What if someone needed help? He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of the car, the rain immediately drenching him. "Hello," he called out, his voice swallowed by the storm. The figure didn't move. As he approached, his flashlight flickered, casting erratic beams across the figure. It was a man soaked to the bone, staring vacantly ahead. Norman shivered, not just from the cold. "Are you all right?" he asked, but the man remained silent. Norman reached out, touching the man's shoulder. The man turned slowly, his eyes hollow and empty, as if all life had been drained from him. Norman stumbled back, unnerved by the lifeless gaze. "Please, you need to get out of the rain," Norman urged. The man finally spoke, his voice a whisper that sent chills down Norman's spine. "It's too late, they're coming." Before Norman could respond, the man collapsed, his body hitting the muddy ground with a sickening thud. Panicked, Norman checked for a pulse but found none. He scrambled back to his car, hands shaking, and drove off, his mind racing. The rain intensified, the road becoming a river of mud and water. Norman's headlights flickered, and the engine sputtered. Fear tightened its grip on him. The old man's warning echoed in his mind. Strange things happen in these woods. Suddenly, the car died, the lights extinguishing, leaving Norman in complete darkness. He fumbled with his phone, but there was no signal, and the battery was almost dead. He was stranded, alone, with the sense of being watched growing stronger. A flash of lightning illuminated the surroundings, revealing multiple figures emerging from the woods. They were like shadows, barely distinguishable from the night. Norman's heart pounded in his chest as he locked the car doors, but he knew it was futile. The figures circled the car, their faces obscured by the rain and darkness. One of them approached the driver's side window, pressing a hand against the glass. Norman recoiled in horror. The hand was pale and skeletal, as if it belonged to a corpse. The figure leaned in closer, and Norman saw its face. Hollow eyes, skin stretched tight over bone, a grotesque semblance of humanity. It spoke, its voice a chilling echo. "You took something that wasn't yours." Norman's mind raced. The shoe. He grabbed it from the passenger seat and threw it out the window, desperate to be rid of it. The figure bent down, picking it up with a slow, deliberate motion. "You cannot escape," it whispered. "They will come for you." The figures retreated, melting back into the woods as if they were never there. The car worked to life suddenly, headlights piercing the darkness. Norman didn't question his luck. He floored the gas pedal, speeding down the road. The rain began to let up as he neared the cabin, his sanctuary now seeming more like a prison. He parked, stumbled inside, and locked the door behind him. Exhausted and terrified, he collapsed onto the couch, his mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. Just as he started to calm down, he heard it, a soft, rhythmic tapping on the window. He froze, heart in his throat. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. Gathering all his courage, he approached the window and pulled back the curtain. There, staring back at him through the rain-streaked glass, was the face of the man from the road, eyes hollow and accusing. The whisper echoed in his mind, a chilling reminder of the night's events. "You cannot escape." Mormon backed away, his breath quickening, realizing that the nightmare was far from over.